this is not exactly the behavior I want. Yes, I want it to restart, but I want there to be a little bit of a delay, just so you can see that you messed up and you hit the wall. So I'm going to change this a little bit. If you look at the way I defined it here below, this function will receive an event, and it looks within the event for a field called delay. So using my post function in player, if I want to add a named parameter, I simply pass in a table, and I put the word delay, which is the parameter that I want to set. Let's say after a collision I want it to wait 2 seconds to restart moving. I'm actually giving this example wrong, but I'll just do this anyways. We still got the same problem, but now it starts moving 2 seconds after redrawing the screen. So what am I doing wrong? What I'm doing wrong is I'm calling this right away. Instead, what I could do is simply say timer perform with delay, or I could use Sergey's next frame function, but I won't. That's part of SSK, taken from Sergey. And let's say I'm going to hit the wall, everything is stopped, I want to wait 3 seconds, and then I want to redraw the game, and then 2 seconds later I want it to start. So I say 3 seconds, 3,000 milliseconds, function, I pass in what is called a closure, which is just a function to wrap some actions. And that's it. So all of the stuff that happened previously will happen. It will wait 3 seconds. It will post this event. That will cause everything to redraw. Then I said delay 2,000. It'll wait an additional 2,000 milliseconds, 2 seconds, and the game will start up again. Start it. Hits the wall. 3 seconds. Boom. 2 seconds. Start again. Endless loop. Now we have a completely playable prototype, and we can play with other features until we're happy with it.
So it's worth noting at this point that we're opting to not have any sort of user interface elements, just so that we can test the game, right? So we can
right. At
develop
this point, we're still testing the game to make sure that it doesn't crash, doesn't have any other issues, stuff like that. Then we'll layer on scoring, a framework to go around it using Composer, and some other details. So particles. I know that we're right up against the clock, but the particles are really, really simple. It's sort of like an explore on your own kind of thing. Of course, I don't have the file open.
And again, the code will link to the code will be available in the show notes. So go grab this and check it out. Ed will show us how to enable it, but you'll want to go through and make it your own.
So there's a module file called particles.lua under the scripts directory, and it follows the same format pretty much as the other ones, except it does not have an initialization. Instead, it's just got a function called draw. And what we do is we pass into draw the group, the layer that we wish it to draw in, the object where we want the particle to be near. So the object in this case is our player. We want the particles to be drawn near our player. Whoops, and then we do that. And then we pass in a radius, which is to say, assuming that the center of the object is where we want the particles to start, we may want to draw our particles at some distance away from the center. And so we will draw at some distance, particle radius, around the center of our object. Find the window here. We're going to draw at the center of the object plus some radius, and we're going to draw randomly some particles here. I'm going to run out of time here, but in a nutshell, what this thing does is we decide how many particles we want to draw per frame. It's a variable that I set at the top of the file. So every frame I draw 2 particles, and I randomly draw an image at some position around the center position of this object, our source object, which is the player. Yeah, I'm going to run out of time. This is it's more complicated than I thought.
Yeah, I tell you what. Let's hold it for next time.
Next week.
Yeah. Is there a place where you can just enable it and show people
I
it
will show
in
it to you
action?
running. So
Yeah.
let's go ahead and let's walk through. It's in the player code.
So that so your homework as the viewer of this program will be to go out and get the code and pick through it, and then next time Ed will explain more details. But
Explain in more detail how it
yeah,
works.
yeah.
At the top of player, we require the module, scripts, particles. We store it in particle M, which is my naming convention in this series. And then we simply, in the enter frame function, so every frame, the player, as you recall, updates the camera position. What we also wanted to do is every frame is to tell the particle system to draw however many particles it's supposed to draw. So you simply uncomment that. Remember, we pass in a group. We're going to tell it to put all of the particles in layer content 3. Self, which is the player in this function, we're going to say center them about this object, the player, but with a radius of whatever the player's radius is, -4. In other words, somewhere between here and -4 pixels from the edge, randomly within this sphere or this circle, we're going to draw a particle. If we restart this now, did I save? You'll see is that it is randomly producing 2 particles every frame, which, because the particles, as we'll see next week, take some time to dissipate, in a sense, it looks as if we have quite a few more. And so when we do this, just the very, very basic particle effect and a trail so we can see where we've been. Which is,
Nice.
if you look at the original game, is quite similar. The big difference here is in the original game, they also do some blending of these particles and color variations to make it look a little more pleasing, aesthetically pleasing.
But from a functional standpoint, there you go. You've got particles coming off the player, and we've said several times that you can spend endless amount of hours tweaking the look and feel of something, but
Right.
functionality wise, there it is.
Yeah, basic functionality, that is what they're doing. One thing that I had considered doing that we still could do is there's a particle system out there called CB Effects. I'm going to switch the camera off now. There's a particle system out there produced by Caleb. I can't remember his last name. Uh, and he made this himself. It's a wonderful particle system. And we could, in theory, hook the CB Effects particle system up and use that to produce our particles. Because instead of going through all the weird calculations, we could just say, hey, use a ready-made library. 2 lines of code later, we've got beautiful particles coming out of our player.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what tool you used in order to come to those settings, but we can talk more about that
The
later
tool
next
was
time.
called randomly choosing values until I saw what I wanted to see. I knew generally what I wanted to do already.
Nice. So poke Ed with a stick. Good, got it.
There you go. Poke Ed's brain with a stick until you get the values out that you want.
That's good. All right, well that's excellent. So now we've got endlessly generated walls. We're cleaning up our memory as we go. We've got particle effects coming off the player object, and the level restarts automatically when we crash into a wall, which we are ultimately going to do because at some point we will speed up the process faster than what we have right now. But for testing purposes, we've slowed it down.
And we have a simple camera system.
Yeah, we have a simple camera system, so we're well on our way to having something that we can be proud of.
Yeah, and it's very simple. And I just want to point one thing out. Last week I said, or maybe it was a week before, we were kind of joking about, oh, don't just take this and like when we get done with the series, just publish this and go, hey, look, I made a game. Make something new and different. Well, as I said earlier in the show, I'm working on my 5th game. My 5th game, I took this code. I said, you know what? I'm going to take this code. I wrote part of this already. Now, it's not a zigzag anything like it, but it still uses some of the core mechanics out of here. And that's where my next game is coming from. So it's really simple, and I really encourage people, once they understand how this code works, is to take it, twist it, explore with it, and do something new.